Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me on today's webcast, which is all about talent, workplaces, and HR, and making sure that you create a workplace that attracts and keeps the best people, because there is a war for talent. And I want to share with you some of the trends that are happening now in workplaces, both what employees are looking for and what makes up the best workplace in that. So in this 45 minutes that we've got together, I want to explore some of these things. I've got a whole bunch of slides prepared, and I speak with a number of leaders in organizations and industries across different sectors, and this is like a compressed version of some of the trends and what some of the research shows around what it takes to become a talent magnet. So I won't go through everything here, and in fact, I've designed this particular webcast in a way that we're going to have a little bit of a like choose your own adventure. As a group, we'll decide which of these 5 areas we're going to look at, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But just be warned that this is going to be quite an interactive webcast, so there's a chance for you to drive your own learning here, and also want to make sure that you've got things that you can take away and put into action. So my 3 rules of engagement for all my webcasts, very broadly, are this. The number 1, I want to give you an opportunity to think. So put aside other distractions and think a little bit differently about your workplace and the way that you manage the people in your team and your organization, and also be a little bit playful here. So there'll be an opportunity for you to engage in some polls, for you to ask questions, for you to write stuff on a bulletin board, and just it's okay to be a bit playful and do things that are maybe outside what you would normally do in your day-to-day work, because it's a chance for you to think a little bit more broadly, and then when you decide on the things that you're going to take away and put into action, then you can choose what's best aligned with your current priorities and with your current workplace and operational procedures. For those who don't know me, I'm a futurist. I'm a conference speaker, a consultant, an author. I speak a lot about the future, and in this case, about the future workplace. And I work with lots of organizations, and I've just given you a sample of them here, just to show you it's across a range of different industries. Some are corporations, some are not-for-profit, some are government bodies, and many of them are facing similar situations when it comes to talent, HR, and retaining and attracting people. So this is what I want to talk about today, because we are in a war for talent. And next month, I'm speaking in my second favorite country for the HR conference in New Zealand. And I'm really looking forward to being there in the middle of next month, speaking at the HR conference. And we're talking about exactly this, how to create the best workplace on earth. So if you're in Wellington and you haven't yet registered for that, but you're in HR, then highly recommend you do that. There's a great lineup of speakers. And if you're there, please come up and say hello to me as well. So these are some of the ideas that I share when I talk about leadership, talent, and HR. I've just recently published my book, Disruption by Design. It's all about leading the change in a fast-changing world. And there's a chapter in there about talent and creating the best workplace on earth, and what I call there's an I in team, because we used to say there's no I in team, but that's not true anymore. We used to say put aside your own personal goals and ambitions and your talents and skills that are outside your job description, but that's not the case anymore. There is an I in team, and the teams of the future are going to be made up of innovative, inspired individuals who don't wait for permission, don't wait to be asked, don't wait to be told, but they take on their own initiative. If you'd like to get a copy of that chapter, then at the end of this webcast, there'll be an exit survey will pop up on your screen. Just type in, just fill in the survey, and as a thank you, I'll send you that I in team, or the best workplace in the chapter from the Disruption in Design book. Okay, so let's get started. And as I said, I like to make this really interactive. So let's get started with our first poll. So very broadly, and this is quite a broad question here, but I'd like to know who's in the room, and it's useful for everyone else in the room to know as well who's in the room. So let me launch this poll, and I'll ask you, what's your main role? So if you haven't done these polls before, very easy, one multiple choice question. It's anonymous, and just choose one of the answers there. And when I get about 80% responding, then I'll close the poll and I'll share the results. Okay, good. Thank you for answering so quickly. That's really, really valuable, and it means that we can make the most of our time. Great. Excellent. Okay, so we've touch the 80% mark there. So and this is simply to share, so you know who's in the room, and so I know who's in the room. So yes, a lot of leaders in the room, and actually a significant amount of HR professionals as well. Great to see, because a lot of the things that around talent and managing talent, not only for HR, but therefore wherever you are, any sort of leadership role that you have in your organization is relevant for you. And as you can see here, there's 1 in 5 here who are business owners as well. Great. Okay, so let me hide that poll result. Okay, so finding high quality talent is going to be the biggest challenge for HR leaders and leaders in general in organizations. So this is just one piece of research, but I see this over and over again as I'm tracking the research around workplaces and talent, and what are the challenges for the future. For many, many leaders, the talent shortage or the war for talent is one of their biggest concerns. And it's really interesting as a futurist, as I look at over the last decade or so that I've been helping people and helping leaders in this area, and they're looking for different things now. And in the past, if you kind of track this trajectory back to going back 7, 8 years or 10 years ago, it used to be all about technology. So people want to know what cool technology is coming in our future. Now, there's still some interest in that. In fact, I just did a radio interview this morning talking about exactly that, and I'm doing a TV interview later in the day, again talking about the future of shopping and the future of education. So people are interested in the technology, but more than that, then there was a shift to now being interested in what are the skills for the future. So technology is changing our world. So what are the new skills that we need to be able to operate effectively in that world? What I'm seeing now is that there are many leaders who recognize there are people out there with those skills. It's just a question of how do we attract them. So now it's not so much about skills, but how do we make sure we've got the best talent? And the talent doesn't mean superstars. It may mean people who work well in teams, but you still want to attract and keep the best people who are the best fit for that future. And I reckon in 18 months' time, all the conversation is going to be around artificial intelligence and bringing that into the workplace. That started already, and depending on how we go and depending on what people are interested in today, we might even talk a little bit about AI in the workplace. But the two things, so broadly we're going to talk about two things, but spend most of our time talking about talent. But may touch on artificial intelligence in the workplace as well, depending on what you want. We'll see. We'll see. So, as I said, I've been doing this for about a decade, and I've published a number of books. And it's about a decade ago, in 2011, I published this book, Fast, Flat, and Free, which was really written for business owners about how they could tap into and leverage the value of the internet. And then 4 years ago, I wrote this book, The Future of Leadership, because it kind of tracked that change. So the internet's changed our world. How do we lead in that world? And I've just published recently Disruption by Design, which is all about innovation, because disruption and innovation are exactly the same thing. It's disruption when it happens to you. It's innovation when you do it yourself. So I want us all to be change makers and innovators rather than just waiting to be disrupted. So let's look at workplaces. So when I work with leadership teams and organizations, I find that you can classify workplaces and workplace culture into one of 6 categories. So let me share the 6 categories with you here. We'll ignore the worst one, and then I'll run another poll, and I'll ask you which of these other 5 you think that your workplace broadly falls into. Okay, so let me explain them first, and then we'll do the poll. Okay, so the first kind is a complacent workplace. So these are people who don't know the world has changed around them. And even if they did know, they don't really care about it. They just think that they're going to have a job for life, or their work's going to keep happening. They're going to keep getting paid every couple of weeks, and everything's going to go along as per normal. I don't think anyone here in the room today would be in that category. So we're going to ignore that one. But then you might find that you've got a resistant workplace. So you've got a culture where people know that change is happening around them, but everything that they do is to resist that change, to restore the status quo. They were really happy with the way things were, and they want to go back to that, or they want to try, and they're desperately trying to make sure that things are working the way they used to, even if they have to push back against some of the change. That's not good. Compliant is not too bad. So compliant workplace is where people know change is happening. They're willing to change, but they'll only do it if they're told to do it. So they go, yep, we know change is happening. Tell us what to do and we'll do it. But if you don't tell us anything, we'll just keep doing business as usual and we're going to hope that we're going to survive. So there are some compliant workplaces, and they're the workplaces who've been that way, compliant for a long time, and the people there don't really want to take any initiative. Okay, so those are the kind of the three negative kind of workplaces. Let's switch over to the more positive side now. So the first one of those is an engaged workplace. So these are where people recognize that there's change, they recognize that they have to change, and they're willing to take some initiative to do something about it. So they're engaged in the change rather than only doing what they're told to do. They're engaged in the change. The second kind is, or the next one along the scale is where they're motivated, where they actually go to work because work has meaning, not just money. So they're not only engaging because otherwise they're going to become obsolete or disrupted, but because they're actually motivated and they're doing something that is going to make a difference not only to their lives but to other people's lives as well. And the best of all is where you've got an inspired workplace where people go to work knowing that they're doing something that's going to make a difference in the world, to make a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs put it. So there's only a small number of workplaces that fall into that category, but you don't have to be a massive company like Apple or Google or Netflix or Facebook to have an inspired workplace. There are people who are making a difference to the world in many, many, many ways in organizations large and small, and the people in those organizations see that their work and their company or the organization they work for is a vehicle for them to be able to make that change in the world. Okay, so let's ignore the complacent one and let's look at the other five. Resistant, compliant, those two aren't so good. Engaged, motivated, and inspired, those three are good. And what's your workplace like? So, as honestly as you're willing to share, and this is anonymous, let me run this poll here. What's your workplace like? Do you think it's resistant, compliant, engaged, motivated, or inspired? Okay, thank you for voting quickly. Great. Okay, so we're almost up to the 80% mark. I think it's just about to tick over now. Excellent. Okay, so thank you. Let me share the results here. Yeah, so there's a real mix here, and it's really interesting to see. So quite often, this is a little bit self-selecting because the people who turn up to these kind of sessions, these kind of presentations, do tend to skew more towards the top end, and you see that here. So what we've got, 60% are in the motivated and inspired workplaces, which is fantastic because you've got that solid base to start from. But it's really great to see that most people are in the area on the, if you like, the positive side of the energy in the room with those 5 or 6 different categories. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. So regardless of where you are, I think you find some value in some of the ideas that we look at. It's just the further down, the lower you are, the harder you'll have to work to create what I call the best workplace on earth. So let's look at some of the trends that make up becoming a talent magnet. So how do you become a magnet for talent? I should say also that I've done a lot of, I do have a lot of other resources, and given that we've only got limited time today, we won't go through all of those things. But if you go to my video channel at gihanperera.tv, you'll find a number of short videos based on research around what it takes to become a talent magnet, and other things around workplace as well. So I'll highlight a couple of them as we go through this webcast, just as additional resources for you. This is one of them, 10 Ways to be a Talent Magnet, which is all based on research from around the world on how to create that sort of workplace that's going to attract and keep the best talent. Okay, but I want to do something slightly different today, and many webcast presenters don't do this, but I want to do this, and we'll see how it works. This is going to rely very much on you, because what I would like you to do is, for us as a group, is I've got a whole bunch of ideas and some slides prepared and some content, but I'd like you to drive how we do this. So, what are your biggest challenges? So, what I'd like you to do is we won't use a GoToWebinar question box because not because you can whatever you type in there, I can see, but everyone else can't. But we'll use this online bulletin board. So, if in your web browser you can now go to this website, askgihan.com. In your web browser, it'll open up this little bulletin board. Let me open that for you and I'll demonstrate how it works. Okay, so what are your biggest challenges? And I've grouped them under 5 different areas. So you can choose any one. You can choose more than one, by the way. You're welcome to answer as many as you like. But let's say you say biggest challenges around diversity and inclusion, developing skills and talent, offering more flexibility, independence and autonomy, or keeping the best people. Let me say, let me do a hypothetical one, offering more flexibility. You can put your name in here, or you can put your business type. So let's say this was real estate, your industry. Okay, biggest challenge of offering more flexibility is trusting people I can't see. Okay, trusting people when I can't see them. Let's see, hypothetically. Okay, that's it. And that then goes onto the bulletin board. All right, great. And you don't worry about the rating and adding comments. Just keep adding this little, just click the plus button and add any of your challenges. And as I said, you can keep it anonymous, but just giving your industry, or if you like, you can give your name. So I'm just going to keep it open for a couple of minutes to give you the chance to respond in there. Okay, you can see people have started doing that, so thank you for that. Okay, now I'll explain why I've chosen these categories. Obviously, there are some other things around that, and I've kept one of these quite broad, which is all about, so the last one is just a very broad one about keeping the best people. Okay, and I'm actually going to, should be able to delete this one because that was just for demonstration purposes. Okay, and we'll see what else we get. Oh, yes, there's a question here about the web address again. So the web address is either askgihan.com, or you can just copy this web address, which is at the top of the screen, padlet.com/gihan/talent. That'll get you there as well. Askgihan.com is just a shorthand for it. Okay, good. Thank you for people who are responding. Okay, yep, tight market, salaries are changing frequently. In fact, I'm talking in Melbourne next week to a small business network, but there's a lot of manufacturing work, and manufacturing is one of the sectors in Australia that has had a little bit of growth. It's had a bit of a turnaround, but that means, of course, that there are people who were previously didn't have the work, and so they didn't have the staff, who are now looking at how do we now quickly bring people into the manufacturing sector. Okay, so we've got a few here. Yeah, uncertainty of funding. So there's a lot of not-for-profits are going through that, and it's not only that there's less funding, but sometimes even the funding models have changed. So this happened in disability services, happening in aged care services, where the funding has been moved from the government, instead of providing funding to providers, is now providing funding to, if you like, the customers and the clients, who then choose how they allocate that funding. And it's completely turned around the model of how aged care is being provided, how disability services are being provided. And you know this is true in other areas as well. So customers now have more power than before. So recently, my partner and I, we bought a stepson a new car. We helped him buy a car. And of course, we did all the research beforehand. We had a look online. We did comparison. We found out all the information before we went in and had a chat with him, with the dealer. And it used to be that the dealers had all the power. They had all the information. Whereas now, to a large extent. If you don't do anything, you just become an order taker there, and you're lucky if customers turn up on your doorstep, because they may not. They may go to somebody else. Okay, great. Thank you very much for more comments here. So we got female talent in a male-dominated industry. Yeah, great. Okay, good. So thank you for that. I don't want to take up too much time in actually getting the responses here, but it's given me some idea. So we don't have much around flexibility or around independence and autonomy. So we won't cover those in today's webcast, but we'll cover some of the others. Okay. So again, another one about female talent. Okay, so thank you for that. Let me switch back to my slide presentation. So we looked at the biggest challenges. So I had prepared notes around these 5 areas. So we'll skip the one around flexibility because we won't do that one. We'll definitely talk about diversity and mentoring and talent. So mentoring is a specific area of developing talent. So we might cover that one, and then we'll do AI as well. So and that should do us. That should do us for time. So that's pretty good. Of those is does anyone want me to specifically talk about flexibility or purpose? If you do, just type it in the question box now, and otherwise we'll just continue as I've said. Okay, let's start with this diversity one. So some research done very recently. So last year, Suncorp did this inclusion at work index, and they found that inclusivity. So people talk about diversity and inclusion, right? So the difference between diversity and inclusion is diversity is like having a lot of textures in your pack, lots of different colors, and inclusion is actually using more of them when you're drawing or painting. Okay, so they work together, diversity and inclusion. And this research showed that employees in inclusive teams are more innovative, more effective, is better for employee retention, and they're more likely to be satisfied or happy with their job. So diversity is not just a nice to have, it's a business imperative as well. And it's possibly, if you think about it, it's not surprising that this is the case now. So in the past, there was a push for diversity, and there's a reason why you should have a more diverse workforce. But it tended to be because it is a really good thing to do and because you're representing society. But now it's really important because our world's changing so fast that experience in terms of like how many years you've been in a role or a job or in an organization and been promoted through roles, that experience is less valuable now. In fact, sometimes it works against you because the things that worked for you, that got you to where you are now, they don't work anymore. And that's why having a diverse workforce makes a huge difference, because now you're getting people from different backgrounds, different experiences, different levels of expertise who are bringing their ideas to the workforce. In fact, if we think about diversity and inclusion, what it's really bringing is diversity of thinking. And I'd like you to think about what kind of thinking typically happens in your workplace. And what happens is if you think about these 2 axes here, you've either got vague thinking or focused thinking, and you've got the people who are doing the thinking are all similar or they're diverse. So if you think about these 4 areas, so the fixed thinking is standard processes, routine things that don't require a lot of thinking. You just follow the process. So you've got a group of people who think the same or doesn't really matter, and they're not working to a vague goal, they're just following processes. So you get this kind of fixed thinking, which is perfect for routine operational tasks. But most differentiating thinking in an organization doesn't fall into this category. So then what leaders try to do is they say, well, we may not have a diverse team, but let's focus on a particular goal. And that's good because it narrows that thinking to focus, but you still get, if you like, narrow-minded teams because they don't think very broadly at all. So yeah, you get focused people working towards a goal, but they don't tend to have a lot of creativity in reaching that goal. The other way that leaders try to change out of fixed thinking is they say, let's have a lot more diversity, but we don't have specific goals. And so then you get things like focus groups and matrix management and so on. And it does widen your thinking, but it tends to be be like you have a lot of groupthink, you get a lot of crossover, you get a lot of conflicts because people don't exactly know where they're going or what they should be thinking about or what they should be focused on. So what you really want is this sharp thinking where you've got a diverse group of people who are focused on specific goals, and then they bring all their experience and expertise into that role. Let's do this little fun exercise that I do in a number of my keynote presentations or workshops. This is a fun exercise. It's based on a true story from about 50 years ago. So a physics professor in an exam asked his students, how would you use a barometer to measure the height of a tall building? Okay, and now his official answer was, what you do is, because there's a difference in air pressure between the ground and the top of the building, measure the air pressure at the bottom, go to the top, measure the air pressure there, and use the pressure differential to calculate the height of the building. There's a formula for that. One of his students said in the exam, he wrote, he would tie the barometer to the end of a long string, go to the top of the building, lower the barometer to the ground, then pull it up and see how long the string was. And the professor said, no, that's the wrong answer. But the student protested because he said, that's as good an answer as the official answer that you gave. So the professor went to some of his colleagues and said, what do you think? And they said, well, yeah, I think you have to give him that answer. And this story made the news, and people came up with other ideas of how you'd use a barometer to measure the height of a tall building. So I'm going to ask you. So there's no prizes here, but just for your own interest, can you think of how would you use a barometer to measure the height of a tall building? And if you can type your answers in the question box, and I'll share with you 6 other answers that people came up with at the time, and we'll see how many of them come up. I'm sure some of them you'll find here. Okay, so Jamie says drop it. Yes, I'm assuming, Jamie, that you mean there that you drop it and use the formula for gravity, force and gravity, and take into account friction from air pressure and so on. And yep, that would work just as well. See how long it takes. Trina says use a window washer platform and gradually go up. Yep. So I assume, Trina, what you're saying is you take the barometer and you just, you measure it up right up to the top in barometer heights, and then you know how tall the barometer is, and so you multiply it. Yep, that's a good answer. What else? Yeah, okay, so measure the height of one floor and then multiply. Yeah, that's another solution. So if you don't want to climb all the way up to the top, you can do it with one floor at a time. Okay, what else? Okay, so Lisa says parachute off the building with it. So how are you doing the measurement, Lisa? I guess you're doing a similar thing. You're just seeing how long you're going to take to reach the ground, and you can use that. Yeah, you can definitely do that to figure out how tall the building is. Yeah, this is an answer that's absolutely correct, but it comes up rarely when I ask groups. So using trigonometry, figure out the length of the shadow. So the length of the shadow of the barometer versus the length of the shadow of the building, and you can use a formula in trigonometry to figure it out. Great, thank you. That is absolutely a correct answer, but it doesn't happen. I don't get it often. So Lisa says take it up in the lift with you. Okay, good. But then how do you use it to measure? So how do you calculate the height, Lisa, using that, taking it up in the lift? I'd like to know. Let's see if there's anyone else. Okay, so another Lisa says, measure the height of the barometer versus the height of the floors, and then calculate the number of floors to get the height. Great, yep. Okay, let me share with you some of the answers that, yeah, height per floor times the number of floors. Great. Okay, so let me share with you some of the ideas that other people shared. So you can imagine now these would be shared on social media, but at the time there was no social media, but people were writing into the newspaper because this made news with their solutions. So here are 6 solutions that other people came up with, some of which we've already got here. So Pri's already talked about, compare the length of the shadows. Somebody else said you can, again, using physics, calculate the frequency of a pendulum string. So again, hang it off the end of a long rope or string and then swing it like a pendulum, and you can use the frequency to calculate the height. Calculate the time to fall to the ground from the top. So that was our first answer, drop it. Scale the wall and measure the height in barometers, which was, I think, Trina's answer with the window washer. And this is the I think both Lisas who responded said this: multiply the height of each floor, and you can calculate that in barometers. And the one other answer that someone said was, go to the building owner and say, I'll give you a brand new barometer if you tell me how tall this building is. Okay, so the point is that as a group, as a team here, we came up with a more diverse group of responses than possibly any of us individually would have done. And this is just a simple example of the value of having diverse thinking. So there's sharp thinking. The people who have a physics background may come up with the physics answers. People who may be thinking more in terms of relationships might come up with that last answer. And of course, all of us have the ability to think outside a little narrow area of expertise as well. So the point is, look for that diversity and in your team. So build diversity in your team, and then make sure you embrace that diversity by adding some, by making sure that it's included as well. I did some work recently with a company talking about exactly this, the best workplace on earth. And at the end of the workshop, what they said was, the CEO said to me, I realize that we've got a really diverse team. We're just not embracing it. We're not taking advantage of it. So we haven't embraced the inclusion part of it. So we're doing diversity, but we're not doing inclusion. And a very big part of that is not assuming that as the leaders, you are the ones who have all the expertise. So embrace that diversity by also adding inclusion to it. Let me just quickly stop and just check around questions around diversity and inclusion. And I know a couple of people asked about the whole idea of bringing women into a male-dominated workforce. And of course, that gender diversity is very important, but are you actually making it happen? And again, I come back to the point that this is not just because it's the right thing to do, as in terms of socially, but it's actually a business imperative as well. So even if you're not, if you don't buy into the idea of diversity because of diversity's sake, if you buy into it because you want to improve your bottom line, then diversity and inclusion are good things. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So the next one I asked about talent development. And one of the things I reckon you should do is, regardless of your role in the organization and regardless of how much, if you like, power and influence you have, mentoring is a really good thing to do in any role and wherever you are, because it's so easy to do. So I've got a quick poll for you here around mentoring. So this was some research done around, this was specifically around women in leadership. So the mentoring question is around women. So how many women are happy with the mentoring programs in their organizations? So let me run this poll here. And this poll here is like this, actually a quiz question. So what do you think the research shows? Okay, so fewer than 20%, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, or over 60. And I haven't even bothered doing more than 80 because it was definitely lower than 80%. Okay, almost everyone's responded, so let me share the results, which are absolutely correct. So most people said fewer than 20% are happy with the level of mentoring that they get in the organization, and that's right. That's right. The research shows, in fact, it's 16%. So 1 in 6 are happy with the level of mentoring that they get in the organizations. And by the way, it's not much better for the men. So it's a little bit better, but not much better. And I reckon mentoring is an easy thing to do because it just needs 2 people to do it. You don't need big amount of organizational support. You just get together with somebody who you'd like to mentor and mentor them. However, I'd like to raise the bar here and challenge you to do reverse mentoring. So in my keynote presentations, when I'm talking about this, I often ask my audiences, how many of you are currently mentoring somebody else? And especially in leadership groups, most people put up their hands. Absolutely, the majority of people put up their hands. But then I ask, how many of you have a reverse mentor? Very few people put up their hands, even after I explain what it is. And if you don't know what it is, a reverse mentor is where you are mentored by somebody who's younger than you. And I use younger in quotation marks because it may be, well, let me tell you about Janet Wilson, who was actually now the former CEO, she just retired, of a law firm in Brisbane. So what she did was this reverse mentoring. So what she did was every 6 months, or maybe every 3 months, let's say every 6 months, she would engage somebody to mentor her, and she'd look for somebody younger. And younger meant one of three things. It could be actually younger in age, so a young person to mentor her. It could also be younger in the organization, so one of the newest recruits in the organization, regardless of their age or experience, because she wanted ideas from outside the business. Or it could be younger in the law. So a recent graduate from university would be somebody who mentored her because she wants to know what's being taught in the moment in law schools and universities. Okay, so the idea of a reverse mentor is where you bring in people, you bring in expertise that's not based on your experience and you doing the mentoring, but you are mentored by somebody else. So what Janet used to do was every couple of weeks she'd have a coffee, just an informal coffee conversation with somebody, with her mentor, and they would teach her stuff, and she would be there asking questions, and the mentor would be answering questions. So if you think about what we're doing here is we're turning the tables on the typical way that talent works. It used to be that the more senior person would share their experience, their judgment, and their wisdom with the more junior person, but now it's the other way around. You still got the junior people who've got different experience, different expertise in things like social media, buying habits, and a very different perspective on the world. So think about the more junior people in your team, in your organization, they may have different ideas around money and wealth creation and buying property and relationships and same-sex marriage. And that perspective is really valuable. And it's not stuff that you would necessarily have got yourself from your own expertise and your own experience. So bring it in by doing reverse mentoring. It's a really simple thing to do, and everybody benefits from it. It's not just you benefiting, you learning from your mentor, but it's also your mentor, of course, learns by hanging out with you as well. Okay, so reverse mentoring is a really valuable thing to do, and it's something that you can start doing straight away if you're not doing it already. Any questions about that or comments? And you may even want to just share if you're already doing reverse mentoring, whether you have a reverse mentor. I should say also that if you've got teenage kids at home, then you've already got futurists living with you, and they should be your reverse mentors, and not just for technology. It's very easy to ask your um, teenage kids to help you with technology, but it doesn't have to be just that. Don't limit it to that. So Trina says, how do you find one? So I reckon, so when I do this in my workshops, I get people to do an exercise to find a reverse mentor. And the first question is, what would you like to learn? So what do you think is a deficiency in your learning? And technology is one that often comes up, Trina, but it doesn't have to be the only one. You might want to know, what do customers want now? What are young people thinking? What do young people want from their workplace? So all of this, so the first thing to do is ask, like, what are the things you want to know? And then try and identify somebody that you know, or if not, put the word out among your colleagues and your peers and even the younger members of your team, and see whether they know somebody or they could be somebody who could help you with that. And the nice thing about a mentoring arrangement is that it's very easy to just suck it and see it, try it out, see how it works, and it doesn't have to be a long relationship. It can be just try it out for a few weeks, see how it works, and it may be that you do it just for a few weeks, and that's the agreement, that's a contract. And then if you find that that's not working for both of you, then find somebody else. Trina says, thanks, good. What if people are reluctant to be a mentor, but they would be great? So any tips? So the trouble with reverse mentoring, or one of the biggest challenges, is the power differential. So there may be people who are nervous about speaking to you because you're so much more senior to them. So part of your role is to make it really comfortable for them, so that they feel comfortable going into it. So for example, you might choose to do it not in your office. So you go out for coffee so that you're not in your power place and they feel more comfortable doing it, or ask them to choose where they would like to do it. So somebody I know, he used to do his mentoring and reverse mentoring by going for a walk in a park. And that would be their mentoring environment because they felt more like equals. I think that's the biggest challenge, Lisa, that you have to overcome there. If people are reluctant, is just that they don't feel comfortable. I mean, if they're really uncomfortable, don't force them to do it, of course, but try and make it as comfortable as possible and as low risk for them. And another Lisa says we do bi-directional mentoring organized through diversity and inclusion initiatives. So I'm in a group of 3. I asked for a reverse mentor and got one. I also have my 10-year-old daughter whose comments give great insights into the future of work, such as why do you? Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, if you've got young people in your life, then instead of telling them to shut off technology, lean in and find out what they're doing and how they're using it. Okay, thanks. And this topic of reverse mentoring, whenever I talk about it, it always generates a lot of interest because I think people recognize that it's actually pretty easy to do and it's got such high value for such a low investment. Okay, so let's talk about artificial intelligence because it is one of the things that's going to affect a lot of workplaces now. In fact, recently I came across the term robophobia for the first time, which is people, workers and employees worried that AI is going to make a big difference. They're going to lose their jobs. It's going to make such a big difference to their jobs that either they won't be able to cope with it or they'll lose their jobs altogether because of artificial intelligence. So the research in Australia from the Australian government suggests that up to 40% of jobs in Australia will be automated in the next 10 to 15 years. So it's not true that the robots are coming for all your jobs, but 40% is a significant number. So there is some reason for the concern about AI, robotics, automation among employees in the workplace. Another piece of research from Dell says that most leaders expect employees and machines to work as integrated teams within the next few years. And this is a secret. It's not necessarily that a robot or AI is going to take your job. It's that humans and robots working together are going to improve the way that people do jobs in a number of different areas. I just want to give you this list here as a few examples of how technology is going to quickly enhance jobs. So even things like sales coaching. So we have artificial intelligence that can listen in on sales phone calls and then coach the salesperson based on what the salesperson's saying and what the AI knows is a good sales technique. And if the AI can't do it, it'll actually then alert the sales manager that this person might need coaching in this area. Predicting people issues. So in HR, a lot of organizations are really interested in the use of AI to determine whether somebody's unhappy at work, thinking about leaving, and those sort of things. So you can then alert managers, alert people to then have an intervention. So it doesn't mean that the AI is going to fire somebody, but it might be able to do an early warning that maybe there's something that needs to be looked into. And there's some others like customer service chatbots, which you've probably seen already. Reading and interpreting complex documents. That's happening in law, it's happening in mortgage broking, it's happening in banking, and so on. So there's a lot of uses where AI works together with you rather than replacing your job. And in some cases, it elevates you. It makes it easy for you to do your job better. And if you want to know a little bit more about that, because we've only just touched on it briefly, then again, at gihanperera.tv, you can see this report that I've written, a short video that I've done, People and Machines Better Together, because that's definitely the future of AI. The idea that we're going to have these Terminator robots or that all our jobs are going to be done by robots is a long way off. The better thing for us, especially as leaders or if we work in as HR professionals, is to be thinking about ways that we can integrate AI into our workplace. Any comments or questions on that? Oh, Priest responded to an early thing about reverse mentoring, and she says, as a business, I think this is she, we have grads and they have mentors. I've always wondered whether they could be used as reverse mentors. Yeah, and absolutely. So as part of what I do in my community contribution to the University of Western Australia, where I graduated many, many years ago, they have a graduate mentoring program and they pair up volunteer mentors, and I've volunteered for the last many years, with new graduates or last year students, final year students. And every time I've done that, I've got as much value from the students as they have from me, even though that mentoring arrangement is supposed to be the other way around. And I reckon that's something you should do and just formalize it, make it a little bit more formal for the reverse mentoring aspect, so that the students feel so the younger person or the more junior person feels more comfortable offering their experience and perspective. Okay, so just to let you know, as before we finish up, I do run keynote programs around this idea of the best workplace on earth. I run these workshops, which can either be half day, full day, or a breakout session at a conference, or I do some strategic planning with leadership teams. So if you want my help in any of those areas, I'd love to talk to you about that. Just when you complete the exit survey, it'll ask you if you'd like us to get in touch, and we will, otherwise we won't. And also, I have a new ongoing leadership coaching program, because many of those other things that I do tend to be one-off, and people ask me, how can we keep working with you? Can we have you kind of at the end of a phone? And this is one of the things that I do now. So I've got this Disruption by Design coaching program. So it's a monthly or an annual program, and it has 3 areas. So it has you get access to me directly, so you can ring me up or drop me an email anytime, or arrange a coaching call at any time. You also get access to peers. So every month we have a group coaching call, and you get the value of diversity from people in, at the moment we've got travel, we've got aged care, healthcare, events, law, so leaders in those areas, and so you get their input as well. And every month, I also run a skills webcast for team members. So last month we did one around decision making, because the members of the program said, oh, we'd like our people to be better at making better decisions. We're going to do webcasts around adaptability, around innovation, around productivity, around goal setting, all the sort of things that you think that your team members would like to learn. So all those 3 things are available as part of this coaching program. So again, if you're interested in that, you can either contact me directly, or when you complete the exit survey at the end of this webcast, you'll get access to that. Just a reminder again that if you'd like to get the free chapter from the book Disruption by Design, please complete the exit survey. I'd love to send it to you, because I really want to help you build the best workplace on earth. I hope this has been really useful to you in figuring out how some of the things that will help you and your organization become a talent magnet. Thank you so much for playing along and for participating, because this webcast very much depended on you and making sure that you got the most value from it. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.